You've been studying English for years. You've done the apps. You've watched the videos. You've made the flashcards. And every time you learn a new word, you feel good. You feel like something is finally clicking. And then, 3 days later, it's gone. You can't remember it. Or worse, you remember the word, but you can't use it. You see it and recognize it. But when you try to speak, nothing comes out. The word just isn't there. This is not a memory problem. This is not a laziness problem. This is a learning problem. You are learning English the wrong way. And today, I'm going to show you how to fix that permanently. I want to tell you about a man named Richard Feynman, Nobel Prize in Physics, one of the greatest scientists of the 20th century, the man who helped build the atomic bomb, who decoded the Challenger disaster, who drew diagrams of the universe on cocktail napkins just for fun. But here is what made Feynman truly extraordinary. It wasn't just that he understood complicated things. It was that he could explain them simply, to anyone, in a way that a child could understand. His colleagues would say, if Feynman can't explain it, nobody can. And Feynman had one rule that guided everything he learned, everything he taught, everything he knew. He used to say, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it. By the end of this video, I'm going to give you Feynman's method. Adapted for your English. 4 steps. Simple, powerful, and the reason your vocabulary will finally start sticking permanently. Here is a problem I see every week with B1 and B2 students. They study words. They write them in notebooks. They highlight them in yellow. They create Anki decks. They read the definition, the translation, the example sentence. They think, I learned this word. I own this word. And then silence. When they need the word in conversation, it disappears. Because reading a word and using a word are 2 completely different things. Completely different parts of the brain. Think about it in Portuguese. You don't learn new words by reading dictionaries. You learn them because someone uses them in a real conversation. You hear the word sautéed in a song when you are 8 years old. You ask, what does that mean? Someone explains. You try to use it yourself. You get it wrong. Someone corrects you. You try again. Now you own that word. Forever. That is a Feynman way. Not passive. Active. Not receiving. Producing. And here's why it matters for your English. Your brain does not store what it receives. It stores what it uses. If you read a word 20 times, your brain thinks, interesting, not urgent. File away. If you use a word once out loud, in a real sentence about something that matters to you, your brain thinks, this person needs this. Store it permanently. Let me show you how. Step 1. Choose one word, not 20. This is where most learners go wrong immediately. They open a list. They try to learn 10 words, 20 words, 30 words in one session, and they remember none of them. Feynman did not learn everything at once. He went deep, one concept at a time. He stayed with it until he owned it completely before moving on. So here's your new rule, 1 word per day. Not 20, 1. But not just any word. A word you actually need. A word that appears in your life. In a meeting, in an email, in a film you watched last night, in a conversation you had where you thought, I wanted to say exactly this, but I didn't know how. That tension, I wanted this word but didn't have it. That is your signal. That is the word you study today. Write it down. Just 1. The word for this session is yours. Step 2. Explain out loud. In English, as if to a child. This is the heart of the Feynman technique. And this is a step that most people skip because it feels embarrassing, because you're alone in your room, and it feels strange to talk out loud. Do it anyway. Take your word and explain it in simple English, as if you are speaking to a 10-year-old who has never heard it before. Let me show you. Let's take the word overwhelming. Don't say, it means too much of something. Say this. Overwhelming is when something is so big, so intense, so much that your brain and your body don't know how to handle it. Like when you have 15 things to do and 0 time, and you just stop. You can't move. That's the feeling. That's overwhelming. Do you see the difference? The first explanation is a dictionary. The second one is yours. You used real language. You used your own experience. You created a sentence that means something to you. Now try it. Pick your word. Any word you've been trying to learn and explain it out loud. Right now. Pause this video if you need to. I'll wait. Step 3. Find where you get stuck. That is your gap. When you do step 2, something interesting happens. You start explaining, and at some point, you stop. You reach a moment where you don't have the words. You know what you mean in Portuguese, but in English, you go blank. That moment of silence is the most important moment in your entire learning session. That is not failure. That is information. Feynman used to call this the gap, the distance between what you think you know and what you actually know. Most learners ignore the gap. They move on. They study more words, more grammar, more content, and the gap stays there, invisible, growing. You're going to do the opposite. You're going to celebrate the gap, because now you know exactly where to go. When you get stuck mid-explanation, stop. Write down the question. How do I say this in English? How do I express this feeling? What is the word for this specific situation? Then go find the answer. A dictionary, a native speaker, an English video, a phrase search, whatever you need. But don't skip step 2 to go straight to the answer. The struggle in step 2 is what makes the answer stick. Your brain needs to feel the gap before it will hold the answer. Step 4, explain it again. Simpler this time. Once you've filled your gap, once you found the word or phrase you were missing, go back to step 2. Explain the original word again. But this time, use the new piece you just learned. And here's the rule. Every time you explain it, try to use one fewer complex word. One step simpler. One step cleaner. One step closer to the way a native speaker thinks. Feynman believed that true understanding means you can say a difficult thing with the simplest possible language. Not because simple language is better, but because if you need complicated words to explain an idea, you don't own that idea yet. You're borrowing it. When you can explain perspective without using the word viewpoint, when you can explain consistent without saying regularly, that is when you own the word. That is when it lives in your active vocabulary. Forever. Let's do it together right now. I want you to say each of these sentences out loud. Don't just read them. Say them. Sentence 1. Overwhelming is when something is so big and intense that you don't know how to handle it. Say it. Sentence 2. I choose one word every day, not 20, and I go deep. Say it. Sentence 3. When I get stuck, I don't panic. I write the question, and I go find the answer. Say it. Sentence 4. I explain the word again. Simpler. Cleaner. Until I own it. Say it. You just used the Feynman technique. In real English. Right now. Feynman would be proud. Now I have one question for you. And I want you to answer in the comments. In English. What is one English word you've been trying to learn for months, but it just won't stick? Write it in the comments. And then, this is your challenge. Write one sentence in English using that word. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be yours. Drop it below. I read every single comment. And sometimes I pick the best ones and turn them into a future video. Your word could be the next lesson. If the Feynman technique changed something in how you think about English today, subscribe. Turn on the bell, because we are not stopping here. We had Seneca, who taught you that mindset is everything. We had Cicero, who taught you that the way you speak matters as much as what you say. And today, Feynman showed you how to make every word stick. Next week, we go to the 20th century, to a man who stood in front of the British Parliament during the darkest days of World War II, and with one voice, one speech, changed the course of history. Winston Churchill, former Prime Minister, former soldier, former journalist, and once, believe it or not, a child who stuttered so badly he was afraid to speak in public. We're going to talk about Churchill's method for speaking under pressure, in job interviews, in presentations, in difficult conversations, in any situation where the stakes are high and your English needs to be at its best. I'll see you next week. And remember, don't just study English. Use it, explain it, own it, like Feynman.